So what I'm hoping to share with you is what it takes before this idea of having truly agile teams and agile development. What does it take before a company can actually thrive on that? And why is it that we now end up in the meeting room instead of actually doing what we're talking about in the meeting room? How many people here spent more than 25% of their working hours in meetings? So what actually causes this excessive waste of time? One claim is it's caused of mindset and incompetence. That's typically not the main reason. Instead, the main challenge is the structure of the organization and the processes we have. This is one of the toughest things to change, but it's a prerequisite for getting this one over here to work. This is a picture of a typical organization. You very often have something called an executive committee. Then you have all your divisions. And then I just took one division and divided it into departments, because PowerPoint is not bigger than that. And if you think this is just taken out of the blue, this is from Nissan Automotive Technology. If someone on top says we need to change something, it works extremely well. But what happens when we find out that this one thing doesn't work? Let's look at an example. We have Jocelyn working in the engine design department. And she figures out like the turbos we're using for our car are not really working well. So we need to change that. These are all the departments that need to coordinate. In order to get these departments to change things, we need to go one step up. And by the way, the divisions can't do it alone, so we need to go one step up. So it ends up at the CEO's table. And imagine how many questions the CEO gets when you have like tens of thousands of people working for you who find problems on a daily basis. So the response back is, just fix it. Then something funny happens, because it doesn't go back to Jocelyn. It actually goes to an executive committee who creates another committee who's looking into the problem of the turbo. So now we're pulling people out of every division, every single department, to go and discuss how we can update the turbo. This happens all the time. That becomes a serious problem. In that scenario, how much does it matter whether they're within Jocelyn's department or working in agile teams? How much, if you have this type of organization, will a scaled agile framework help? You still have all these divisions and all these departments and all these discussions that needs to happen. It's an impossible equation. In order to break it, we need a totally different perspective. We can't even have an organization that looks like this because it's not capable of responding. It's capable of being busy. But how do we even approach this? First of all, we need to have a business vision. Figure out what will make you competitive in that market. If I was doing a startup and I was paying for this, and I had enough money to hire, say, 8 people, which competencies do we need in order for this to even make sense? Who would we hire in order to ever get there? This is the real life of startups. You have 8 people in a basement or a shed or somewhere else sitting around the same table. Oh, let's do the turbo problem. The turbo doesn't really work, so we need to change it. Is that okay? Yeah, sure, done. That's why I focus on the startup. They're capable of adapting all the time. So figure out which competences you need. And then try to say, who am I going to hire if I could only afford 8 people in order for us to have a full stack cross-functional startup? Then you can say, well, how do we structure it if we want more of those? How do we make decisions on actually what to focus on? And how do we make sure that we continuously improve in doing it? Once we know that, we can establish our first team. Because that first team incorporates all the required skills, with a few exceptions. Because in the startup, you go like, yeah, I would also need someone who can do legal contracts. I'm not going to hire a lawyer on day one. I can hire a law firm for that. But can I build my product? If you're dependent for doing that, you're in trouble. So instead of having one team that can do it, have 12 teams who can do all of it. And then you need to do the obvious one at the end. Well, why would I work for you if there's no career path? How are we going to recognize people who do a really good job? Without inflating our management structure. There are other ways of doing it than doing a managerial promotion. So that's the process flow. Right? How do we even get to a point where we can have these cross-functional collaborative teams who can actually act? But unless you have the foundation of a true full-stack cross-functional team, we're going to have structural dependencies, and the more structural dependencies we have, the less autonomy we can have. With Trump as president in the US and trade wars, do you think adaptability is important to the CEO? That's actually what they worry about the most. Because do we have a business tomorrow is kind of an important question.